It's February 2003 and the most famous sheep in the world has just died.
Dolly the sheep, the world's first cloned mammal, has died at the age of 6. Vets decided to put down the animal because she had a progressive lung disease.
Embryologist Professor Ian Wilmut is one of the scientists in Scotland who is mourning her death.
Oh yes, when we realised that she was sick and then very quickly afterwards that she was seriously sick, we were all very disappointed and upset. It left a great big hole in our lives in all sorts of ways.
Professor Wilmut had led the team at the Roslin Institute outside Edinburgh, which created Dolly, named after the country and western singer Dolly Parton. She was the first mammal to be successfully cloned, an exact genetic replica of another sheep. Her birth in 1996 represented years of work.
When she was born and was healthy and was obviously going to survive, we were clearly overwhelmed almost, because we knew that it was going to be important for biology, but it was also going to be important for each of us as individuals, because it was going to develop our careers, really, really usefully. We carried out a lot of observations, made fairly detailed studies of her during the first week or two, and I think we were reasonably confident by the end of that time that she was going to have a normal lifespan.
Once the news was made public, Professor Wilmut and the team became the focus of massive media attention.
The theoretical future has become flesh. Dolly, the ewe whose mother is also her twin, is the most talked about sheep on Earth because she's proved it's possible to clone an adult mammal.
We had TV crews from CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, all the American networks beaming live satellite broadcasts to the early morning news on the East Coast.
But with the publicity came a great deal of speculation. If scientists could clone sheep, what next? Humans? Even the then US President Bill Clinton was concerned.
This new discovery raises the troubling prospect that it might someday be possible to clone human beings from our own genetic material. There is much about cloning that we still do not know, but this much we do know. Any discovery that touches upon human creation is not simply a matter of scientific inquiry. It is a matter of morality and spirituality as well.
We had a little bit of anxiety, but really not much, because it's true of such a lot of research. I mean, we're using an awful lot of electronic gear to record this conversation, and then you'll use even more gear to broadcast it around the world, which came from essentially the same physics which blew up two Japanese cities, 60 years ago. Technology is potentially often useful, or it can be used in a dangerous way. What's important is that we control its use so that, as much as possible, it's only used for the good things. And I have always had absolute faith in this country that we would have good regulations of what you do, let's say, with human embryos, or what you do with animals. So a little bit of anxiety, but not much.
And Professor Wilmut says that the science which produced Dolly will be hugely useful in medicine in the future.
After the birth of Dolly, as we went on to refine and to use the technique, we were able to put particular genes into animals so that they produce proteins. But by far the most spectacular use of the technology has been by a company working in the middle of the United States, which has changed cows so that they produce human antibodies, not cattle proteins, but human antibodies. And what this will mean once these have been fully developed is that it will be possible to put those into patients, for example, to attack cancer cells or to respond to viral infections for which we don't have an effective treatment.
And how do you feel about your creation?
Obviously, we're very proud of the experiment. It did make people think differently about the biology. It's quite complicated to explain, but all of us and all of our different cells come from the single cell of an embryo. Almost all of the cells in our body have exactly the same genetic makeup. So biologists have wondered for a long time, how does that happen? How do the different types of cells get formed? And we now begin to understand that it's because there are mechanisms which turn on and off genes which may be required to produce a particular tissue, like muscle and so on. And until Dolly, we used to think that process was irreversible. What Dolly showed was that it's not. And so as a result of this, biologists all around the world went away and thought, given this new idea, can we find other ways of changing cells? There's a Japanese group who found a method of taking skin cells from people and treating them so that they become equivalent to embryo stem cells. What that means is that they'll grow in the lab indefinitely whilst retaining the ability to form all of the different tissues. Because of Dolly, at some time, sadly it's probably 10 years into the future, labs around the world will be beginning to develop the first effective treatments for diseases like Parkinson's disease, possibly some of the psychiatric diseases. We'll be able to study degenerative diseases properly for the first time. To me, the big implication of Dolly is not the sheep anymore. It's the profound effect that through the activities of the group in Japan, being stimulated by the birth of Dolly, and I know that is the case, Dolly prompted them to do things which has opened up an entirely new era in medical research.
As for Dolly herself, was she just another sheep in the flock, or did she have a personality all her own?
She did, but it was because she was very well looked after and had people around her a lot of the time. I think the comparable situation is that often farmers and their wives will find that they have a lamb which is not being properly mothered, and they will sometimes take these lambs indoors and hand rear them. And I think Dolly was equivalent to that she was used to being with people. She came towards people, was very, very friendly. But I don't think it's because she was a clone. I think it's because of the hand rearing.
Hello, Dolly.
She was spoiled. Not deliberately, but because lots of people wanted to photograph her, and the only easy way of getting her to come to a particular place was to offer a little bit of food. She was spoiled, and there came a point where she was overweight and we had to ration her and help her to lose weight.
6 years later, and after giving birth to several healthy lambs, Dolly was put down.
She had a virally induced lung cancer, which you can't treat, and we decided it was kinder to end her life rather than to have her suffer. There's no reason to think at all that it had anything to do with cloning. We kept a group of sheep together because we didn't want Dolly on her own, and they were housed at night for their own security. And of course, this is, being a lung disease, it spread in the air as the animals breathe, and so that is how she caught it.
Dolly was considered so important that after her death she was stuffed and put on display in Scotland's National Museum, where Andrew Kitchener is the animal curator.
One of the most amazing days in my time here at the museum was when we actually launched Dolly. It was incredible to see the huge number of press photographers here and people wanting to do radio interviews and television interviews because we had actually mounted Dolly for display. All the photographers were scrambling for the best position to take photographs of essentially what is a dead sheep. Dolly is displayed standing on all fours on a plinth which is covered in straw and a few sheep droppings which have been cunningly recreated. They're not genuine ones. And her head is sort of turned slightly to the left, and she's looking sort of inquiringly at her audience. And of course, added excitement because Ian Wilmut was there and he had to pose looking adoringly into her glass eyes.
Since then, Dolly the stuffed sheep has travelled to other museums as far afield as Budapest. She is currently on display at the National Museum in Edinburgh. Professor Ian Wilmut, who was knighted in 2007 for his role in her creation, visits her from time to time.